We send thanks to all animal life in the world. They have many things to teach us as people. We're glad that they're still here and hope that will always be so. That is a quote from one of my favorite books, one that each of us citizens have, The American Passport. We live on a land that was once home to native tribes that lived in harmony with nature. Well, things have changed quite a bit since then. I want to begin with a challenge for you. Connect with your nature. I want you all to take a moment, close your eyes, relax, and think back to a time that you felt connected to nature. What did that look like? What sounds can you hear? How do you feel? Does this happen to be where you grew up? And if not, how is this place different? How did your friends, family, and people treat that environment? In my head, I'm walking along the shore as waves lap the beach, feeling the silky sand slide between my toes as my footsteps disappear with each wave. I'm taking a ride at sunrise through the palmetto trees, listening to blue jays awaken in song, crickets beginning to settle their chirps as fog lifts to the clouds. Here, nature consumes me. You see, we each share a different experience of how we connect with nature, and your mental images are probably much different than mine. We are what we experience. Moments, events, the environment, and people that we interact with shape each of our individual journeys. Everyone has their own unique experience, which I believe in one way or another connects back to nature. Every culture holds different values and what framework of respect is held for the environment. Food defines a large part of that culture. In the context of growing up in Florida, whether you grew up fishing in Miami, perhaps influenced to eat more Latin foods there, or here in Gainesville, living off the land or hunting deer. But let's be real here. Who, by a show of hands, has actually caught and killed their own food? Did you know it takes 1,847 gallons of water and a lot of land to produce 1 pound of beef? Some fish farms can pollute natural systems with excess waste and increased disease factors. You see, where we live largely influences what food we consume and how its cultivation process impacts the environment. We are products of our environment, shaped to view our own limited perspective. On a micro level, we can find more connection and an appreciation for nature if we spent hours of their time to obtain it, versus industry, we're further removed from the process it took to get that single cut of meat or vegetable. High amounts of waste is also a byproduct of where we live. Everyone in here at some point has used plastic. Did you know that we have a giant wasteland of plastic 3 times the size of Texas in the Pacific Ocean? The Great Pacific Garbage Patch. It's important to look at the full life cycle of products that we use and their impacts to the environment. We are products of our environment, shaped to view our own limited perspective of how we connect and use natural resources on a daily basis. Through awareness and an open mind, we can build our relationship with the environment and people to be more connected to nature and themselves. We must recognize the power and cognizant accountability we must take to protect our natural world. I want to share a process that shaped my life, finding what I call your 3 Ps: passion, purpose, and perseverance. I believe through exploring your passions, what excites you, what ignites your soul, you can find more connection to yourself, but also for an appreciation for nature that surrounds you. I believe through exploring your passions, this may be many, you can find your purpose and push to persevere. I believe through doing this, we'll have a more fulfilled and connected society. My story starts as a Florida native, a free-spirited, curious child playing in nature any moment I could, embracing the natural tendency to wander and find beauty in the little things. As a kid, I would spend hours looking under rocks for roly-polies and lizard eggs, holding plant leaves up to the sun to view intricate patterns, and walking the beach for miles to find the most beautiful shell. A scientist back then, I developed deep questions and curiosities, and still do. Growing up on the coast was a blessing. Surfing and diving became my second world. Florida, home to the 3rd largest reef in the world. I will never forget my first dive on a coral reef. Vibrant fluorescent blue sponges, bright red gorgonians, and the smallest nudibranchs with striking colors. Things quite seemingly out of this world, but just 30 feet offshore, a bustling underwater ecosystem booming with life. Nature has provided us with food, medicines, and materials we need to live, But many may not know that some of our best medical advancements have come from the ocean, such as sterilization for IVs from horseshoe crab blood, or bryoastin used to treat leukemia, made from bryozoans. We've industrialized these revolutionary medicines from the ocean, yet we've only explored 5% of the ocean, despite our planet being covered in 70% water. Many know that these ecosystems are at risk to collapse, yet we've only protected 8% of it. The potential and vast nature of discoveries to be made that can help humanity are immense. Through my first few years at the University of Florida, I came to the realization of just how little we know about the ocean, how much we have to learn, and are taking for granted. I developed a passion for using secondary metabolites from corals to aid in cancer cures. I joined the scientific diving program and began monitoring coral. In July of 2014, I had the most impactful dive of my life. While monitoring coral, I watched as a 4-foot, 100-year-old mountainous star coral colony die in just 3 days. A novel disease taking over the reef track, stony tissue loss disease, turning vibrant corals to white, lifeless skeletons. Coral tissue melting before our eyes. Marine life started to deplete. Shades of brown and gray covering a once thriving landscape, turning massive coral colonies to mounds of rubble. We couldn't stop it. It was like leprosy, spreading from coral to coral, while on shore people continued on, clueless, careless, and ignorant, not even in the news. It was in this moment that I realized I needed to be a voice for the voiceless, and shifted my career to conservation and restoration of marine ecosystems. I found fulfillment in restoration work, getting to work with projects from seagrass, scallops, oysters, mangroves, and even sea urchins. And although I found purpose in restoration work, like my master's doing oyster restoration in Apalachicola Bay, I came to realize that a lot of restoration projects were typically funded by environmental disasters like the BP oil spill. I further realized issues within the economics of scaling restoration, internal politics that hindered restoration, and check-in-the-box restoration projects funded by these environmental disasters. I discovered the biggest problem of this century was less scientific in nature, but rooted in the absence of human connection. I found the biggest problems plaguing our environments was the missing connection between people and nature. So I want you to reflect. Do you still feel connected to your nature? It's a matter of perspective. If it's not personal or impacting people's daily lives, we tend not to care. We may not have to walk 3 miles to get water. We can simply turn on our faucet. But until that water's cut off, we may not think about where that water is coming from, its impacts to the environment, or resources available to others. The environment's often looked at as just that, resources for us to use and not take care of. The ocean even further removed, out of sight, out of mind for many. Many feel that their impact is too small to have an effect on the vast ocean. I became interested in the psychological principles of how do we shift public relationships and their relationship with the environment. How do we go beyond making people care, but drive an inherent responsibility to prioritize the health of the environments that we live in? How do we bring back the deep native respect for nature? I discovered a universal medium that can do that: art. Art has been used throughout history to tell stories about people and nature, like the cave paintings found from 15,000 BC in Lucas, France. Stories about culture and the way of life, like Egyptian hieroglyphs. About war and power, like Guernica by Picasso. Or triumphs and civil shifts, like Triumphs of Caesar by Giorgio Vasari. Art is a powerful tool of connection and expression that freezes cultural stories in time. In 2018, I met an artist who initially body-casted people as Romanesque figures. No head, no lower body, just physique. He had a client who wanted his wife sculpted as a mermaid to put at the end of his dock, by his yacht, at his mansion in Miami Beach. It took the artist months to build this lifelike, 10-foot-tall, beautiful mermaid sculpture. He comes back to the client excited. The client responds, "Well, I got bad news. I lost my house, my yacht, my wife, and I'm going to prison. Some Miami scammer. Well, what do we do with this sculpture? Just throw it in the ocean for all I care. So make this an artificial reef?" The artist explored its feasibility and connected with a reef builder. And that road eventually led to me, a coral biologist. They wanted to put corals on these sculptures. And after being turned away by many scientists, I too said, well, we're not going to be able to do that. But maybe we can use those sculptures to fund actual restoration. And better yet, perhaps if we design these structures to more closely mimic natural reefs, then maybe we could put coral on it. And so started my nonprofit, the Ocean Rescue Alliance International. We build artificial reefs to enhance marine environments while connecting communities together. We use artificial structure to enhance marine environments, build habitat, protect coastlines, aid in restoration, and connect communities together through art. Through the last 5 years, we've developed novel structures that help aid in connecting people through art while helping protect against coastal erosion. We've deployed 280 structures in the ocean so far, aided in outplanting over 30,000 corals, and have scaled restoration projects with 8 novel restoration technologies. But now for the fun part, putting the art in artificial. We use art as a medium to connect people back to the ocean through eco-art projects. Eco-art projects that connect community and culture while giving every individual the direct opportunity to make a measurable impact on the ocean. From underwater art parks to memorial reefs to company-branded reefs, utilizing art creates an interactive perspective that allows people to experience nature in a new light. One of our biggest eco-art projects is our 1,000 Mermaids artificial reef, where we sculpt real people as mermaids. Mermaids tied back to folklore and history to 1000 BC in Syria to the landlocked deserts of Karoo, South Africa. A mystical half-human, half-fish that symbolizes our inherent human connection back to the ocean. And although this project's gained a lot of public interest with 35 mermaids deployed so far and only 965 more to go, the biggest project I'm most excited about is our Mayan Reef in Mexico. We're working with a Mayan community to build a mile-long reef shaped like a serpent, representing the Kluclan, their deity of wisdom. This reef will act as a breakwater to protect against coastal erosion while serving as a coral nursery base that will restore nearby reef systems. This project is so beautiful to me, as it's one that weaves a deeper cultural narrative to connect people to the ocean while allowing them to experience history in a new light. We're turning previously exploitative companies to restoration practitioners that get to take tourists to outplant coral, helping support the local economy, but restoring marine life for generations to come. We hope to build projects like this all around the world to help restore marine environments while protecting coastal communities and providing an interactive perspective that will hopefully create sustained change. Art can document our history while leading us to new destinations. Life is an odyssey. Just like Odysseus, we all want to find our way home and connection along the way. The story of Odysseus explores themes of heroism, loyalty, and fate of the gods on humans. The gods sent muses to inspire humanity. 9 muses sent to bring arts, science, and humanities, renowned for their talents in theater, dance, poetry, and song. Even the word music was driven from muse. It is said that making art is the closest thing we have to feeling like a god, because we're making something out of nothing. What do you think of when I say artist? Perhaps a painter, Salvador Dali? Art comes in many forms. And I believe there's an artist in each one of us. Whether you're an attorney, finding your art, gathering your evidence, and defending your case, or a scientist problem-solving biological issues, we each are an artist of our own discipline. We each have our own muse. So how will you use your art to inspire change? People are disconnected now more than ever before from nature. I've used art as a funding mechanism, but ultimately as a deeper way to open minds, connect people, and provide an interactive perspective that will hopefully create sustained change. We must not be reactive, but proactive. Our time to make a change is now. I'm a believer that we can solve the world's greatest environmental issues with the right connected people. After all, we're at the most technologically advanced state we have ever been in humanity. From scientific advancements like CRISPR to taking samples from Mars, we can restore our reefs, rainforest, and waterways. We can make clean energy out of our oceans. We can make regenerative solutions that can help the environment and people. You now understand how where you live, culture, what you eat, and how you handle your waste impacts the environment. Hopefully you can see how simply being aware of these things can help us make more conscious decisions to respect the environment. It is a privilege to have access to healthy food and clean water. We must have gratitude for simply this access to nature that supports us all. My advice: find your nature that connects, inspires, and brings you peace. Find your 3 Ps: passion, purpose, and perseverance. Become an eco-conscious person of what you can do within your area and within your means that can positively impact the environment. We have so much to learn from nature. We may not be able to go back to the way things were, but we can use today's technological advancements to make a more connected future. Reflecting from earlier, now how will you connect with your nature?